Mbuende, you are perhaps one of the foremost thinkers on regional integration in SADC and on the continent generally. And you differentiate between market integration and functional integration. What's the difference?
Market integration is actually based on maybe a linear thinking in terms of trade liberalization. That you move from one phase of integration to another, that is from a from a free trade area to a customs union, etc. So that is the one aspect. That is mainly trade liberalization, even though as part of that, there's also the question of investment promotion and so forth. But that is the main focus of market integration is really the creation of free trade areas, the creation of common markets, and of course the creation of customs union, common market, etc. That is the one. That is what is happening in the area of trade. But we say trade is a result of other activities, is a result of production. So when we talk about integration, one shouldn't just isolate trade from the rest of the activities, human activities in society. And that is where functional integration comes in. Functional integration then becomes the cooperation in the development of infrastructures, like the transport corridors, the development corridors, energy sharing of energy resources, but also it goes down to cooperation among institutions of higher learning such as universities and so forth, and various initiatives that are being taken, not necessarily by governments, but also by the people of the region. And in fact, if you judge what is happening in Southern Africa in terms of trade integration, if you look at the trade aspect, you may say, well, not much has happened in terms of maybe trade liberalization. But in terms of trading, countries are trading. And one could say if there was further liberalization or implementation of our trade commitments, the trade will grow between our countries. But that's one aspect. But also the limit to the development of trade is also the structures of our economies. If we are all producers of raw material for export to the industrialized countries, then even with trade liberalization, it's going to be the trade may not increase substantially. And that's where the functional cooperation comes in, where you actually talk about industrialization, talk about infrastructure development.
Could you give us examples of how functional integration is working? Well,
I think at this conference, you look at the discussion and the reports we got on the Maputo corridor and the various transport corridors. I think these are very clear examples of where functional cooperation is working. The area of energy with the Southern African power pool, where the various utilities are working together in terms of trading energy, but also in terms of development. Then, of course, there is a question of industrial policy. Not much has happened on that which is being discussed. But then the other areas that are not really very much part of our discussions is what's happening with the universities. The amount of exchange of students between the different countries, exchange of lecturers and so forth, it's amazing. You can't believe how, if you go to any of the universities in Southern Africa, whether it's University of Cape Town or whether University of Botswana, Namibia, and Zambia, you find hundreds of students from the other countries studying at those institutions of higher learning. And these are all aspects of functional cooperation. The recognition of degrees by the various authorities and all that.
How do national interests drive the regional integration agenda?
It is important. Countries will commit resources, time and energy to regional integration to the extent that they benefit from that process. And the attempt to discuss regional integration as if it's something completely different from national development, I think is wrong. Regional integration must develop our countries individually. The citizen of each of the countries must derive benefits from regional integration. Otherwise, it makes no sense. So in that way, when a road, for example, it's built to move goods and services from, let's say, country A passing through another country B to country C, somehow this country in the middle here must derive some benefits, and it will, to the extent that the traffic and so forth. So, so I think what we have to increasingly do is integrate regional development into our national development programs, so that and this is happening both in terms of the coastal state like Namibia, when they look at developing the ports of Walvis Bay and so forth, they are not looking at that as a national program, but they are also looking at it as a national, as a regional program. But they have to spend national resources, they have to spend money in order to make this happen. But at the same time, they know that while they are developing these ports, it's not going to be viable if it's only a Namibian port, but it's viable if it's used by Botswana and Zambia and Zimbabwe, and vice versa. So that's why national development and regional development should be integrated, and one shouldn't discuss regional development in isolation from national development.